Why being too nice is making people disrespect you. Introduction. The dangerous myth of being nice. From the time we are children, we are taught an important lesson: be nice. Parents teach it, teachers reinforce it, society rewards it. We learn that being polite, helpful, agreeable, and accommodating are signs of good character. And to some extent, they are. Kindness is one of the most valuable qualities a human being can possess. It builds trust, strengthens relationships, creates connection, makes life better for everyone. But somewhere along the way, many people learn the wrong lesson. Instead of learning how to be kind, they learn how to become pleasing. Instead of learning compassion, they learn compliance. Instead of developing character, they develop a habit of putting everyone else's needs before their own. And this is where the problem begins. Because there is a significant difference between being kind and being excessively nice. One creates respect. The other often destroys it. This book is about understanding that difference. The hidden cost of being too nice. Many people spend years believing that if they are nice enough, everything will work out. People will appreciate them. People will value them. People will respect them. Yet reality often tells a different story. The nicest person in the room is frequently interrupted, overlooked, taken for granted, manipulated, undervalued. Meanwhile, someone less accommodating often receives more respect. At first glance, this feels unfair. After all, shouldn't kindness be rewarded? Shouldn't generosity attract appreciation? Shouldn't helping others create respect? Sometimes it does. But excessive niceness creates a hidden problem. It teaches people that your needs come second. And once people learn that lesson, many begin treating you accordingly. Not necessarily because they are bad people. Because human beings naturally respond to the standards we communicate. Why niceness and respect are not the same thing. One of the biggest misunderstandings in human relationships is the belief that being liked automatically creates respect. It does not. Someone can like you and still disrespect you. Someone can appreciate your help and still take advantage of you. Someone can enjoy your company and still ignore your boundaries. Respect and approval are different psychological experiences. Approval is about comfort. Respect is about value. Approval says, I enjoy having you around. Respect says, I recognize your worth. The two can exist together. But they are not the same. And people who spend their lives chasing approval often sacrifice the very thing they want most: respect. The birth of a people pleaser. Very few people become people pleasers overnight. The pattern usually begins early. Perhaps as a child you learned that being agreeable earned praise. Maybe conflict felt unsafe. Maybe approval became connected to love. Maybe disappointing others created guilt. Over time, these experiences teach an important lesson. If I keep everyone happy, I will be accepted. This belief feels protective. But it carries a hidden cost. Because eventually, keeping everyone happy becomes impossible. And the more you try, the more exhausted you become. The exhaustion nobody talks about. People pleasing is tiring. Not physically. Emotionally. You constantly monitor other people's reactions. You worry about disappointing them. You overthink conversations. You replay decisions. You say yes when you want to say no. You sacrifice your needs to avoid conflict. And after a while, something happens. Resentment appears. Not because you dislike helping people. Because you have abandoned yourself. You have spent so much energy taking care of everyone else that you forgot to take care of yourself. Why some people take advantage. One of the most painful experiences for excessively nice people is realizing that kindness does not always attract kindness. Sometimes it attracts takers. People who constantly ask for favors. People who expect your time. People who assume your availability. People who see your generosity as a resource to consume. This does not mean kindness is wrong. It means kindness without boundaries becomes vulnerability. And vulnerability without protection invites exploitation. The difference between kindness and weakness, this distinction is critical. Kindness is a choice. Weakness is a lack of choice. A kind person can say no. A weak person feels unable to. A kind person helps because they want to. A people pleaser helps because they feel obligated. A kind person maintains boundaries. A people pleaser sacrifices them. The behaviors may look similar from the outside. The psychology behind them is completely different. The respect paradox. Perhaps the most surprising truth in this book is this: the more desperately you want people to like you, the less they often respect you. Why? Because desperation communicates dependence. The hidden message becomes, my value depends on your approval. People sense this. Not consciously, psychologically. And dependence rarely inspires respect. Confidence does. Self-respect does. Boundaries do. Authenticity does. What this book is really about, this book is not about becoming rude. It is not about becoming selfish. It is not about caring less about others. It is about caring enough about yourself. It is about learning that kindness and strength can exist together. That generosity and boundaries can coexist. That compassion does not require self-sacrifice. You do not have to choose between being respected and being kind. You simply need to learn the difference between kindness and people-pleasing. A different kind of strength. As you move through these chapters, you will discover something important. The people who earn the most respect are rarely the people who constantly try to earn it. They are the people who know their value. Who protect their boundaries. Who can tolerate disapproval. Who help others without abandoning themselves. Who are kind because they choose to be, not because they are afraid not to be. That is real strength. And that strength becomes visible in everything they do. The journey ahead. In the pages ahead, we will explore why excessive niceness often lowers respect, how boundaries create healthier relationships, why people pleasers attract manipulators, the fear of being disliked, the psychology of saying no, the difference between kindness and weakness, how to become assertive without becoming aggressive, why self-respect is the foundation of all respect. Most importantly, you will learn how to stop living for approval and start living from self-respect. Because the goal is not to become less kind. The goal is to become strong enough that your kindness is a choice, not a survival strategy. And that is where our journey begins. Chapter 1. The Niceness Trap. Most people believe being nice is a strength. And in many ways, it is. Kindness can build friendships, strengthen relationships, create trust, make life more pleasant. The world needs kind people. But there is a hidden danger that very few people talk about. At some point, kindness can stop being a virtue and become a survival strategy. When that happens, niceness transforms into something entirely different. It becomes people-pleasing. And people-pleasing creates a trap. A trap that slowly destroys confidence, weakens boundaries, and invites disrespect. Most people fall into this trap without realizing it. They think they are simply being nice. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. They are sacrificing themselves to earn approval. The difference between nice and good. One of the biggest misconceptions in modern life is the belief that being nice and being good are the same thing. They are not. A good person acts according to values. A nice person often acts according to fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of conflict. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of being disliked. The behavior may appear identical, but the motivation is completely different. Imagine someone helping a friend move house. One person helps because they genuinely want to. The other helps because they are terrified of saying no. The action is the same. The psychology is not. One comes from generosity. The other comes from fear. How the niceness trap begins. Most people do not choose people-pleasing consciously. The habit develops gradually. Often during childhood. A child discovers that being agreeable earns praise. Being obedient earns approval. Being easy to manage earns affection. Over time, the child learns an important lesson. When I make other people happy, I am accepted. This lesson feels safe. And for a while, it works. Teachers approve. Parents smile. Friends accept them. But eventually, the child becomes an adult. And the strategy that once created connection begins creating problems. Because adult relationships require something more than approval. They require authenticity. The addiction to approval feels good. There is no denying it. A compliment. Recognition. Acceptance. Praise. These experiences activate reward systems in the brain. They create pleasure. The problem begins when approval becomes necessary. When someone starts believing, I need people to approve of me to feel okay. At that point, approval becomes an addiction. And like any addiction, it creates dependence. The person starts organizing their behavior around avoiding disapproval. They stop asking, what do I want? And start asking, what will make everyone happy? That shift changes everything. Why people pleasers lose themselves. One of the saddest consequences of chronic niceness is self-abandonment. People pleasers spend so much time focusing on other people's needs that they lose contact with their own. They know what everyone else wants, but struggle to identify what they want. They know everyone else's priorities, but neglect their own. Over time, they become disconnected from themselves. And when you lose connection with yourself, confidence begins to disappear. Because confidence requires self-trust. And self-trust requires self-awareness. The cost of always saying yes at first, saying yes seems harmless. A favor here. An extra responsibility there. A sacrifice for someone you care about. But repeated over months and years, the consequences become significant. Every unnecessary yes often comes with a hidden no. A no to your rest. A no to your priorities. A no to your goals. A no to your emotional well-being. People pleasers often become overwhelmed not because they have too much to do, but because they have difficulty refusing requests. Their kindness becomes a doorway through which everyone else's demands enter. Why nice people feel resentful. Many people believe resentment comes from selfishness. In reality, resentment often comes from self-betrayal. Imagine repeatedly saying yes when you want to say no. Imagine constantly prioritizing others over yourself. Imagine suppressing your needs day after day. Eventually frustration appears. Not because you dislike helping people, because you are neglecting yourself. The resentment is not directed only at others. Part of it is directed inward. Because deep down, you know you are allowing the situation to continue. The fear beneath niceness. If we look closely, excessive niceness is often fueled by fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of rejection. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of abandonment. Many people believe saying no will destroy relationships. They imagine others becoming angry, leaving, rejecting them. As a result, they choose temporary comfort over long-term self-respect. They avoid difficult conversations, avoid boundaries, avoid honesty. The immediate reward is peace. The long-term cost is confidence. Why respect begins to disappear. One of the most painful realities people pleasers discover is that excessive niceness does not always create respect. Sometimes it creates the opposite. Why? Because respect often requires boundaries. When someone never disagrees, never says no, never expresses needs, never protects their time, others begin seeing them differently. Not necessarily as weak, but as someone whose needs can always wait. Someone whose limits can always be stretched. Someone who will always accommodate. Over time, appreciation turns into expectation. And expectation often turns into entitlement. The invisible contract. Many people pleasers operate according to an invisible contract. The contract says, if I am nice enough, people will treat me well. But life rarely works this way. Some people will appreciate your kindness. Others will simply accept it. Still others may take advantage of it. The painful truth is that kindness does not guarantee respect. Boundaries help create respect. Self-respect helps create respect. Confidence helps create respect. Kindness alone is not enough. The danger of conflict avoidance feels safe. In the short term, you avoid uncomfortable conversations, avoid disagreements, avoid tension. But unresolved issues rarely disappear. They usually grow. The conversation you avoid today often becomes the larger problem you face tomorrow. Highly respected people understand this. They do not seek conflict, but they are willing to face it when necessary. People pleasers often do the opposite. They sacrifice honesty to maintain temporary harmony. And eventually, that harmony becomes unsustainable. Why authenticity matters more than niceness. One reason people respect authenticity is because authenticity feels real. Authentic people reveal who they are. Their preferences. Their opinions. Their boundaries. Their values. People may not always agree with them, but they know where they stand. People pleasers often hide these things. They adapt constantly, adjusting themselves to fit other people's expectations. As a result, others never truly know them. And it is difficult to deeply respect someone who never reveals themselves. Escaping the niceness trap. The solution is not becoming rude. It is not becoming selfish. It is not becoming uncaring. The solution is becoming honest. Honest about your needs. Honest about your limits. Honest about your values. Honest about your preferences. When honesty replaces fear, relationships become healthier, and respect begins to grow. Because respect requires authenticity. The first step toward real respect. The first step out of the niceness trap is recognizing a simple truth. You are not responsible for making everyone happy. You are responsible for acting with integrity. You are responsible for treating others well. You are responsible for respecting yourself. Everything else is beyond your control. The moment you stop trying to manage everyone's emotions, you reclaim your freedom. And with that freedom comes confidence. A new definition of strength. True strength is not being endlessly accommodating. It is not saying yes to everything. It is not sacrificing yourself for approval. True strength is being kind without being controlled, generous without being exploited, compassionate without abandoning yourself. That balance is rare. And because it is rare, it earns respect. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: the people who receive the most respect are not necessarily the nicest people. They are the people who combine kindness with self-respect. They know when to help. They know when to say no. And they understand that being loved by everyone is impossible, but respecting yourself is essential. That understanding is where genuine confidence begins. In the next chapter, we will explore why people respect boundaries more than sacrifice, and how learning to protect your time and energy changes the way others treat you. Chapter 2. Why people respect boundaries, not sacrifice. Most people are taught that sacrifice is noble. And sometimes it is. Parents sacrifice for children. Partners sacrifice for one another. Friends help each other during difficult times. Healthy relationships require generosity. They require compromise. They require support. But there is a line that many people never learn to recognize. A line between healthy sacrifice and unhealthy self-abandonment. Cross that line often enough, and something surprising happens. People stop respecting your sacrifices. They start expecting them. This is one of the most important lessons in human psychology. Because while people appreciate generosity, they often respect boundaries. And understanding the difference can change your relationships forever. The misunderstanding about sacrifice. Many people secretly believe, if I give enough, people will value me more. So they give their time, their energy, their attention, their emotional support, their resources. And at first, The appreciation feels rewarding. But over time, something shifts. The extraordinary becomes ordinary. The favor becomes expected. The sacrifice becomes normal. Human beings adapt quickly. What once felt generous eventually feels routine. This is why excessive sacrifice often fails to create lasting respect. How expectations are created. Every relationship operates according to patterns. If you answer every phone call immediately, people expect immediate access. If you always solve everyone's problems, people expect solutions. If you constantly put others first, people begin assuming that is your role. Most expectations are not intentionally created. They develop gradually. Through repetition, behavior teaches people what to expect, and repeated sacrifice often teaches people that your needs come last. The psychology of boundaries. Boundaries are often misunderstood. Some people see them as selfish. Others see them as hostile. Neither is true. A boundary is simply a limit. A clear statement about what you will and will not accept. Boundaries communicate. My time matters. My energy matters. My well-being matters. They are not walls. They are guidelines. Healthy boundaries allow relationships to function without resentment. Why boundaries create respect? Respect is closely connected to value. And value is closely connected to limits. Think about anything valuable in life. Time, money, resources, opportunities. Their value comes partly from scarcity. Unlimited resources are often taken for granted. Limited resources are protected. The same principle applies to people. When someone has no boundaries, their availability appears unlimited. Their time seems endless. Their energy seems unrestricted. Ironically, this often reduces appreciation. Boundaries create limits. And limits increase value. The fear of setting boundaries. If boundaries are so important, why do people struggle with them? The answer is simple. Fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of rejection. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of appearing selfish. Many people believe boundaries will damage relationships. But healthy boundaries usually improve relationships. Because they create clarity. And clarity reduces misunderstanding. The hidden message behind every boundary communicates something important. Not just to others. To yourself. When you set a boundary, you tell yourself, my needs are important too. This message strengthens self-respect. And self-respect influences confidence. People who repeatedly ignore their own needs slowly weaken their sense of self-worth. People who protect their needs reinforce it. The difference becomes visible over time. Why nice people attract excessive demands? People pleasers often find themselves overwhelmed. Everyone wants something. A favor. A commitment. An obligation. A solution. An emotional rescue. At first, it feels like bad luck. But often, the pattern has a deeper cause. People who rarely say no unintentionally train others to keep asking. Not because others are malicious. Because behavior creates expectations. If there are no limits, demands continue expanding. The difference between generosity and obligation. Generosity feels light. Obligation feels heavy. Generosity comes from choice. Obligation comes from pressure. Many people confuse the two. They help because they feel guilty. Not because they genuinely want to. The result is exhaustion. And eventually resentment. True generosity can only exist when there is freedom to decline. Without the freedom to say no, every yes becomes less meaningful. Why saying no feels so difficult for many people? Saying no triggers discomfort. Almost immediately, thoughts appear. What if they get upset? What if they stop liking me? What if I disappoint them? These fears are powerful, but they often exaggerate reality. Most healthy relationships survive boundaries. In fact, many become stronger because of them. People learn where they stand. Expectations become realistic. Resentment decreases. Honesty increases. The respect hidden in a simple no. The word no is one of the most powerful words in any language. Not because it is aggressive. Because it is clear. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates respect. When someone says no calmly and respectfully, they communicate, I value my priorities. I understand my limits. I make decisions intentionally. These messages create authority, not dominance. Authority. Why boundaries reveal self-worth. One of the most important truths in psychology is this: people often treat you the way you teach them to treat you. Not perfectly, but frequently. If you constantly tolerate disrespect, people assume it is acceptable. If you consistently protect your boundaries, people learn those limits matter. Boundaries reveal self-worth. They communicate, I believe I deserve respect. And people respond to that belief. The guilt that comes with growth. Many people feel guilty when they begin setting boundaries. This is normal. Especially if they have spent years prioritizing others. The guilt does not necessarily mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it means you are doing something unfamiliar. Growth often feels uncomfortable. The discomfort is temporary. The benefits are lasting. Why some people resist your boundaries. Not everyone will welcome your boundaries. Some people benefit from your lack of boundaries. They enjoy unlimited access, unlimited favors, unlimited accommodation. When limits appear, they may resist. This does not mean the boundaries are wrong. It simply means the relationship dynamic is changing. And change often creates resistance. The strongest relationships require boundaries. Many people fear boundaries will damage relationships. The opposite is often true. Healthy relationships require boundaries. Without boundaries, resentment grows, expectations become unrealistic, communication becomes dishonest, emotional exhaustion increases. Boundaries create sustainability. They allow relationships to remain healthy over time. Because neither person is sacrificing themselves completely. Boundaries are not selfish. One of the greatest myths surrounding boundaries is that they are selfish. But protecting your energy is not selfish. Protecting your mental health is not selfish. Protecting your time is not selfish. Ignoring yourself entirely is not generosity. It is self-neglect. And self-neglect eventually harms both you and your relationships. The respect that follows boundaries. Something remarkable happens when people begin setting healthy boundaries. At first, some people may be surprised. Others may push back. But over time, a new pattern emerges. People begin recognizing your limits. Your time gains value. Your commitments become more meaningful. Your words carry greater weight. Why? Because boundaries communicate self-respect. And self-respect is one of the foundations of respect from others. The choice that changes everything. Every day, people face a choice. They can continue sacrificing themselves for approval, or they can begin protecting themselves with boundaries. One path leads to exhaustion. The other leads to confidence. One path creates resentment. The other creates self-respect. One path depends on external validation. The other builds internal strength. The choice is not always easy, but it is life-changing. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: people may appreciate your sacrifices, but they respect your boundaries. Because boundaries communicate something powerful, that your time, energy, and well-being matter too. And the moment you begin treating yourself as valuable, other people often begin doing the same. In the next chapter, we will explore the hidden connection between self-respect and respect from others, and why the way you see yourself quietly teaches the world how to see you. Chapter 3. The hidden link between self-respect and respect from others. Most people spend years trying to earn respect from others. They focus on appearance, achievements, status, approval, recognition. They believe respect comes from external sources. But there is a deeper truth that many never discover. The respect you receive from others is often connected to the respect you have for yourself. This connection is subtle, invisible, yet incredibly powerful. Because the way you see yourself influences the way you behave, and the way you behave teaches others how to treat you. Understanding this principle can transform every relationship in your life. The relationship that shapes every other relationship. Every person has one relationship that lasts a lifetime. The relationship with themselves. Whether you realize it or not, this relationship influences everything. How you speak, how you think, how you make decisions, how you handle conflict, how you respond to criticism, how much you tolerate from others. If your relationship with yourself is weak, your external relationships often suffer. If your relationship with yourself is strong, your external relationships become healthier. Because self-respect affects behavior. And behavior affects perception. What self-respect really means. Self-respect is often misunderstood. Some people confuse it with arrogance. Others confuse it with selfishness. Neither is accurate. Self-respect means recognizing your own value. It means understanding that your needs, feelings, time, and boundaries matter. Not more than everyone else's. But not less either. A person with self-respect believes, I deserve to be treated with dignity. This belief influences every interaction. The signals you send every day. Human beings constantly send signals. Most of them are unconscious. You send signals through your boundaries, your communication, your reactions, your standards, your choices. These signals tell people how you view yourself. And people often respond accordingly. For example, if you constantly apologize for existing, people may begin treating your needs as less important. If you consistently protect your time and communicate clearly, people often recognize your value. The signals matter. Because people are always observing behavior. Why low self-respect invites disrespect? Imagine someone who constantly allows others to interrupt them. Ignore them. Take advantage of them. Dismiss their opinions. Over time, those behaviors become accepted. Not necessarily because others are cruel. Because no limits were established. Low self-respect often communicates, my needs are not important. And unfortunately, many people respond to that message. The result is a cycle. Low self-respect leads to weak boundaries. Weak boundaries invite poor treatment. Poor treatment further damages self-respect. The cycle continues until something changes. The approval trap. Many people attempt to replace self-respect with approval. They think, if enough people like me, I will feel valuable. This strategy rarely works. Because approval is unstable, people change their opinions, circumstances change, relationships change, public opinion changes. If your self-worth depends on approval, your confidence becomes fragile. Self-respect creates stability because it comes from within. Approval comes from outside. And anything controlled by others can be taken away. Why confident people are treated differently? Confidence is attractive. Not because it makes people superior. Because it communicates certainty. People trust certainty. They respond to certainty. They respect certainty. Confidence often begins with self-respect. When someone values themselves, they naturally speak more clearly, set healthier boundaries, tolerate less mistreatment, make stronger decisions. These behaviors influence how others respond. The confidence is visible. And visibility changes perception. The mirror effect. Relationships often function like mirrors. The way you treat yourself becomes reflected back to you. If you constantly criticize yourself, others may begin criticizing you too. If you consistently undervalue yourself, others may follow your example. If you respect yourself, others often respond differently. Not always, but frequently. Because self-respect creates expectations. And expectations influence behavior. Why self-respect is not arrogance? Some people fear self-respect because they associate it with ego. But there is a huge difference. Arrogance says, I am better than you. Self-respect says, I am equal to you. Arrogance requires comparison. Self-respect requires awareness. Arrogance seeks superiority. Self-respect seeks dignity. The most respected people are rarely arrogant. They simply understand their worth. The power of internal validation. One of the most important skills a person can develop is internal validation. This means being able to recognize your own value without constantly seeking external confirmation. Internal validation sounds like, I am proud of my effort. I made the best decision I could. I trust my judgment. These beliefs create independence. Because your emotional state becomes less dependent on other people's opinions. And emotional independence is deeply connected to respect. Why people test boundaries. Whether consciously or unconsciously, people often test limits. They test your patience, your boundaries, your standards, your expectations. How you respond teaches them what is acceptable. If disrespect goes unchallenged, it often continues. If healthy boundaries appear, behavior often changes. This is not about controlling others. It is about communicating standards. And standards are rooted in self-respect. The cost of self-abandonment. Every time you ignore your needs to gain approval, you send yourself a message. The message is, other people's needs matter more than mine. Repeated enough times, this belief becomes internalized. Eventually, you stop trusting yourself. Stop listening to yourself. Stop advocating for yourself. This is self-abandonment, and self-abandonment weakens confidence. Because confidence grows from honoring yourself, not ignoring yourself. Building self-respect one decision at a time. Self-respect is not built overnight. It develops through small decisions. Every time you say no when necessary, speak honestly, honor your values, protect your time, keep your promises to yourself, you strengthen self-respect. The process is gradual, but the results are powerful. Because confidence is built through evidence. And every healthy decision becomes evidence. Why respect starts from within. Many people spend years trying to convince others to value them. Trying to prove their worth. Trying to earn recognition. But lasting respect begins internally. When you recognize your own value, your behavior changes. When behavior changes, perception changes. When perception changes, relationships change. Everything begins with self-respect. The freedom of knowing your worth. There is a unique freedom that comes from self-respect. You stop chasing validation. You stop begging for approval. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stop tolerating treatment that violates your standards. This freedom creates confidence. And confidence creates influence. Not because you demand respect. Because your behavior quietly communicates that you expect it. The foundation of every healthy relationship at its core, self-respect is not about power. It is about balance. Recognizing that your needs matter. Your voice matters. Your time matters. Your well-being matters. When you understand this, relationships become healthier. Because they are built on mutual respect rather than self-sacrifice. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: people learn how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. If you consistently value your time, energy, and well-being, others often begin doing the same. But if you constantly abandon yourself for approval, many people will follow your example. Respect begins with self-respect. And the way you see yourself quietly teaches the world how to see you. In the next chapter, we will explore why people-pleasers often attract manipulators, and how learning to recognize emotional manipulation can protect your confidence, boundaries, and self-respect. Chapter 4. Why people-pleasers attract manipulators. One of the most painful experiences for excessively nice people is realizing that not everyone appreciates kindness. Some people do. Some people are grateful. Some people respect generosity and return it. But others see kindness differently. They see it as an opportunity. An opportunity to get more. More time. More attention. More favors. More emotional support. More access. This is why many people-pleasers eventually ask themselves, why do I keep attracting people who take advantage of me? The answer is not because they are unlucky. And it is not because all people are selfish. The answer lies in psychology. Because manipulators and takers are naturally drawn toward people who struggle to enforce boundaries. The nature of manipulation is not always obvious. Most people imagine manipulation as something dramatic. A villain controlling others. A master deceiver. A calculated scheme. In reality, manipulation is often subtle. It appears in everyday interactions. A guilt trip. A pressure tactic. An emotional appeal. A strategic use of obligation. A carefully timed request. Many manipulators do not even realize they are manipulating. Some simply learn that these behaviors work, and they continue using them. Why people pleasers become targets? Manipulators look for predictable patterns. They pay attention to behavior. Who says yes? Who avoids conflict? Who feels guilty easily? Who struggles to disappoint others? These traits often appear in people pleasers. And because people pleasers fear rejection, they frequently tolerate behavior that others would challenge. This makes them attractive targets. Not because they are weak. Because their boundaries are unclear. The fear that manipulators exploit. Most manipulation operates through fear. Not physical fear. Emotional fear. Fear of disappointing others, causing conflict, appearing selfish, losing relationships, being judged negatively. Manipulators understand these fears. Sometimes consciously. Sometimes unconsciously. They know that guilt and pressure can influence decisions. And they use those emotions to get what they want. The weapon of guilt. Guilt is one of the most powerful manipulation tools. A manipulator might say, "After everything I've done for you," or "I guess I can't count on you," or "A good friend would help." Notice what happens. The conversation is no longer about the request. It becomes about your identity. Your loyalty. Your character. Your morality. This creates emotional pressure. And people pleasers often respond automatically. Not because they want to. Because they feel guilty. Obligation versus choice. Healthy relationships are built on choice. Manipulative relationships often rely on obligation. Choice sounds like, "I'd appreciate your help if you're available." Obligation sounds like, "You owe me." The difference is enormous. One respects freedom. The other attempts to control behavior. People pleasers frequently struggle to recognize this distinction. Because they have spent years prioritizing other people's expectations over their own preferences. The endless favor cycle. Many people pleasers find themselves trapped in a pattern. Someone asks for help. They say yes. Another request follows. Then another. Then another. Eventually they become the default problem solver. The default helper. The default rescuer. At first, this may feel rewarding. But over time, the relationship becomes unbalanced. The giving increases. The appreciation decreases. And resentment begins to grow. Why takers rarely stop on their own? A difficult truth about human behavior is this. People often continue benefiting from a situation until a limit appears. If someone receives unlimited favors, they may continue asking. If someone receives unlimited emotional support, they may continue relying on it. If someone encounters no resistance, they often keep moving forward. This does not necessarily make them bad people. It makes them human. Boundaries are what create balance. Without boundaries, imbalance grows naturally. The rescuer identity. Many people pleasers develop what psychologists sometimes call a rescuer identity. They feel responsible for solving everyone's problems, fixing everyone's emotions, saving everyone from discomfort. This role feels important, needed, valuable. But it creates a hidden problem. Because people begin depending on them, and the rescuer becomes trapped. They cannot rest, cannot say no, cannot step away. Because their identity has become tied to helping. Why saying no feels dangerous for manipulators? A boundary is an obstacle. For people pleasers, a boundary often feels like a threat. The moment they consider saying no, thoughts appear. What if they get angry? What if they leave? What if they think I'm selfish? These fears create hesitation, and hesitation creates vulnerability. Manipulators often rely on that vulnerability, because uncertainty makes people easier to influence. Emotional blackmail. One of the most common forms of manipulation is emotional blackmail. The message is usually, if you care about me, you'll do this. Or, if you don't do this, you're hurting me. This creates a false choice. Either comply or feel guilty. Healthy relationships do not operate this way. Healthy relationships respect autonomy. They allow people to choose freely, without emotional punishment. The difference between compassion and responsibility. People pleasers often confuse compassion with responsibility. Compassion means caring about someone's struggles. Responsibility means solving them. You can care deeply about someone without becoming responsible for their life. You can support someone without carrying their burden. You can love someone without rescuing them. Understanding this distinction changes everything, because it frees you from unnecessary emotional weight. Why manipulation works. Manipulation succeeds when people doubt their right to have boundaries. When someone believes, my needs matter too, manipulation loses power. When someone believes, I must keep everyone happy, manipulation becomes effective. The difference is not external. It is internal. It begins with self-worth. Recognizing red flags. Manipulative behavior often includes guilt trips, constant pressure, refusal to respect boundaries, emotional punishment, excessive demands, victim playing, attempts to control decisions. Recognizing these patterns is important, because awareness creates choice, and choice creates freedom. You cannot protect yourself from what you cannot identify. The power of disappointing people. One of the most important lessons people pleasers learn is this: it is okay to disappoint people. Not intentionally, not unnecessarily, but inevitably. Because if you have boundaries, someone will eventually be disappointed. If you prioritize your needs, someone may object. If you say no, someone may be unhappy. That discomfort is not proof you are wrong. It is often proof you are growing. What healthy relationships look like. Healthy relationships respect limits. They allow disagreement. They tolerate boundaries. They survive the word no. They do not require constant sacrifice. Mutual respect replaces manipulation. Choice replaces pressure. Honesty replaces guilt. And both people maintain their dignity. That is what healthy connection looks like. Reclaiming your power. The moment you stop viewing yourself as responsible for everyone's happiness, something changes. You stop reacting automatically. You start making conscious choices. You begin evaluating requests honestly. You stop saying yes out of fear, and start saying yes out of desire. This shift is powerful, because genuine generosity can only exist when refusal is an option. The lesson: manipulators hate. Manipulators thrive when boundaries are weak. They struggle when boundaries become clear. The strongest defense against manipulation is not aggression. It is clarity. Clarity about your values, your limits, your priorities, your responsibilities. When these become clear, manipulation loses much of its power, because confidence leaves less room for control. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: manipulators are not attracted to kindness. They are attracted to the absence of boundaries. Kindness is a strength, but kindness without limits becomes vulnerability. The moment you learn to combine compassion with boundaries, you stop becoming an easy target. And that is when genuine respect begins to replace exploitation. In the next chapter, we will explore the fear of being disliked, the hidden force behind people-pleasing, and why learning to tolerate disapproval is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Chapter 5. The fear of being disliked. For many people, the fear of being disliked controls more of their life than they realize. It influences what they say, What they don't say. The opportunities they pursue. The boundaries they avoid. The relationships they remain trapped in. The decisions they make every day. Most people do not wake up thinking, "I am afraid of being disliked." Instead, the fear hides behind behaviors. People-pleasing. Over-apologizing. Conflict avoidance. Excessive niceness. Constant agreement. Seeking approval. At its core, many of these behaviors are driven by a simple desire: I want everyone to like me. It sounds harmless, even admirable. But this desire can quietly become one of the biggest obstacles to confidence, self-respect, and genuine respect from others. Why humans fear rejection. The fear of being disliked is deeply human. For most of history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Being excluded from a tribe could be dangerous. Isolation often meant vulnerability. As a result, the human brain evolved to pay close attention to social acceptance. Even today, criticism and rejection can trigger emotional responses that feel surprisingly intense. Your brain often interprets social disapproval as a threat. Not because your life is in danger. Because your nervous system is designed to value connection. This explains why rejection hurts. But understanding the origin of the fear does not mean you must remain controlled by it. The impossible goal. Many people spend years chasing universal approval, trying to make everyone happy, trying to avoid criticism, trying to avoid conflict, trying to be liked by everyone. The problem is simple. It cannot be done. No matter who you are, someone will disagree with you. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will criticize you. Someone will dislike you. This is not a personal failure. It is reality. The moment you accept this truth, a tremendous amount of pressure disappears. Why people pleasers fear disapproval. People pleasers often connect approval with safety. When people approve of them, they feel secure. When people disapprove of them, they feel anxious. This creates a dangerous dependency. Because emotional stability becomes tied to external reactions. Imagine allowing every person's opinion to determine your self-worth. Your confidence would constantly rise and fall. You would never feel truly secure. This is exactly what many people experience. The approval addiction. Approval can become addictive. A compliment feels good. Recognition feels rewarding. Acceptance feels comforting. The brain enjoys these experiences. The problem begins when approval becomes necessary rather than enjoyable. An approval addiction sounds like, I need everyone to agree with me. I need people to understand my decisions. I need others to approve before I feel confident. The dependence becomes exhausting. Because the need is never fully satisfied, there is always another person to impress, another opinion to manage, another critic to silence. Why respected people can tolerate dislike. One of the defining traits of highly respected people is their ability to tolerate disapproval. Not because they enjoy it. Not because they are emotionless. Because they understand something important. Being disliked does not make you wrong. Many people assume criticism automatically means they have failed. Respected individuals know better. Sometimes criticism is valuable. Sometimes it is not. The key is learning to evaluate criticism rather than fear it. The cost of constant agreement. When someone fears being disliked, they often become highly agreeable. They agree with opinions they do not share. Accept requests they do not want. Suppress feelings they need to express. Avoid conversations they need to have. At first, this seems effective. Conflict decreases. Tension disappears. Approval increases. But authenticity decreases. And authenticity is one of the foundations of respect. People cannot truly respect a version of you that is not real. Why conflict is not always bad. Many people treat conflict as a sign that something is wrong. In reality, conflict is often a sign that something is honest. Healthy conflict can clarify expectations, strengthen boundaries, solve problems, improve communication. Avoiding conflict may create temporary comfort, but unresolved issues rarely disappear. They usually become larger over time. Respected people understand this. They do not seek conflict, but they are willing to face it when necessary. The myth of being universally liked. Think about the most respected people in history. Leaders, innovators, artists, entrepreneurs, thinkers. Were they universally loved? Almost never. In fact, many of them faced criticism throughout their lives. The reason is simple. The more visible you become, the more opinions people will have about you. Trying to avoid criticism often means avoiding growth. Avoiding leadership. Avoiding authenticity. Avoiding visibility. The price of universal approval is often self-suppression. The courage to disappoint others. One of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to disappoint people respectfully. This sounds uncomfortable. Because it is. But maturity requires it. Sometimes you must say, no. Sometimes you must say, I disagree. Sometimes you must say, that doesn't work for me. Not everyone will like these responses. And that is okay. Because your responsibility is honesty, not universal satisfaction. Why rejection feels personal. When someone rejects us, it is easy to assume, there must be something wrong with me. But rejection often has little to do with your worth. People reject ideas, preferences, circumstances, timing, compatibility, expectations. The human mind often personalizes experiences that are not personal. Learning to separate rejection from identity is a powerful form of emotional freedom. The freedom of authenticity. Authenticity becomes possible when approval stops being the highest priority. Instead of asking, what will make people like me? You begin asking, what is true for me? This shift changes everything. Because authenticity creates consistency. Consistency creates confidence. Confidence creates respect. Not because everyone agrees with you. Because people sense that you are genuine. Building tolerance for disapproval. The fear of being disliked weakens through exposure. Every time you express an honest opinion, set a boundary, decline a request, disagree respectfully, prioritize your needs, you teach yourself something important. I can survive disapproval. This realization is transformative, because confidence grows when fear loses power. Why self-respect requires risk. Self-respect often requires doing things that make others uncomfortable. Not because you want conflict. Because honesty sometimes creates discomfort. A boundary may disappoint someone. A truth may challenge someone. A decision may frustrate someone. If avoiding discomfort becomes your highest priority, self-respect becomes impossible. Growth requires risk. And self-respect requires courage. The turning point. There comes a moment in many people's lives when they realize, I cannot spend the rest of my life managing other people's opinions. That realization is liberating. Because it shifts attention away from approval and toward authenticity. Away from fear and toward confidence. Away from people-pleasing and toward self-respect. That moment becomes a turning point. The people who truly matter. An important truth often gets overlooked. Healthy people do not require you to abandon yourself. Healthy relationships can tolerate disagreement, boundaries, honesty, individuality. If someone only values you when you constantly please them, the relationship may be based on compliance rather than respect. Real connection survives authenticity. The freedom on the other side. When you stop fearing disapproval quite so much, life changes. You speak more honestly. Make decisions more confidently. Set healthier boundaries. Express your needs more clearly. And perhaps most importantly, you stop living as a performance. You begin living as yourself. That freedom is worth more than approval. Because approval can be lost. Authenticity remains. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: not everyone will like you. Not everyone will agree with you. Not everyone will approve of your choices. And none of those things determine your worth. The moment you stop making approval your goal, you become free to live authentically. And authenticity is one of the most respected qualities a person can possess. In the next chapter, we will explore why nice people often feel invisible, and how developing assertiveness allows you to be heard, valued, and respected without becoming aggressive. Chapter 6. Why nice people often feel invisible. There is a quiet frustration that many nice people carry. They rarely talk about it openly. They smile. They help. They support others. They avoid conflict. They do everything they believe a good person should do. Yet deep down, they often feel invisible. Unnoticed. Overlooked. Undervalued. They watch other people get promoted. Other people get attention. Other people get heard. Other people get credit. And they wonder, why does it seem like everyone notices everyone else except me? The answer is not that they lack value. The answer is often that they have learned to hide it. The invisible person in the room. Imagine a meeting where several people are discussing ideas. One person speaks confidently. Another expresses disagreement. A third shares a bold opinion. Then there is the quiet people pleaser. They have valuable thoughts, useful insights, strong ideas, but they hesitate. They worry. What if I'm wrong? What if someone disagrees? What if I sound foolish? So they remain silent, and something predictable happens. The louder voices receive attention. Not necessarily because they are smarter. Because they are visible. Visibility matters. Why niceness can become self-erasure. Niceness becomes dangerous when it turns into self-erasure. Self-erasure happens when a person consistently suppresses their opinions, their preferences, their needs, their desires, their boundaries. They become experts at accommodating everyone else, but strangers to themselves. The more they disappear emotionally, the more invisible they become socially. Because people cannot recognize what you refuse to reveal. The need to be seen. Every human being has a fundamental psychological need, the need to be seen. Not admired. Not worshipped, seen. To feel understood, recognized, acknowledged, valued. When people consistently suppress their authentic selves, this need remains unmet. And eventually loneliness appears. Even when surrounded by people. Because being liked for a false version of yourself never feels as satisfying as being accepted for who you truly are. Why people pleasers struggle to be heard. People pleasers often communicate indirectly. They soften every statement, qualify every opinion, apologize for every request. They say things like, "This may be a bad idea, but," "I'm probably wrong, but," "Sorry, can I say something?" Without realizing it, they weaken their own message. Their words arrive wrapped in uncertainty. And uncertainty reduces influence. The psychology of assertiveness. Assertiveness is one of the most misunderstood skills in human interaction. Many people believe assertiveness is aggressive. It is not. Aggression ignores the rights of others. Passivity ignores your own rights. Assertiveness respects both. Assertiveness says, "My needs matter." And, "Your needs matter too." It is the middle path between submission and domination. And it is one of the strongest predictors of healthy self-respect. Why confidence creates visibility. Confidence attracts attention. Not because confident people are louder. Because they communicate certainty. People naturally pay attention to certainty. A person who constantly questions themselves appears less convincing. A person who communicates clearly appears more trustworthy. This does not mean confidence is always correct. It means confidence influences perception. And perception influences visibility. The cost of staying small. Many people learn to stay small. Not physically. Psychologically. They minimize achievements, hide talents, suppress opinions, avoid attention, refuse recognition. At first, this feels safe. But safety has a cost. The cost is invisibility. Because the world can only respond to what you are willing to reveal. Why being agreeable is not the same as being respected. People often confuse agreement with respect. They believe, if everyone agrees with me, they must respect me. Not necessarily. Agreement often creates comfort. Respect comes from something deeper. Integrity, competence, confidence, authenticity. A person who agrees with everything may be liked, but they are not always respected. Because respect requires individuality. Finding your voice. Many people spend years searching for confidence. But confidence often begins with something simpler: using your voice. Sharing an opinion, expressing a need, setting a boundary, making a request, speaking honestly. Each of these actions strengthens self-trust. And self-trust is one of the foundations of confidence. The more you practice using your voice, the stronger it becomes. Why silence can be misunderstood. People often assume silence communicates agreement, or indifference, or lack of interest. The problem is that others cannot read your mind. If you never express your thoughts, people are forced to guess. And their guesses are often inaccurate. This is why communication matters. Not because you need constant attention. Because clarity prevents misunderstanding. The fear behind invisibility. Many invisible people are not actually shy. They are afraid. Afraid of judgment. Afraid of criticism. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of making mistakes. These fears create hesitation. And hesitation creates silence. The solution is not eliminating fear. The solution is acting despite it. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement in spite of fear. Learning to take up space. One of the most important lessons for people pleasers is this: you are allowed to take up space. Your ideas deserve expression. Your needs deserve consideration. Your opinions deserve a voice. Your boundaries deserve respect. Many people spend years behaving as though their presence is an inconvenience. But confidence grows when you stop apologizing for existing. Why visibility feels uncomfortable. For someone accustomed to staying in the background, visibility can feel uncomfortable. Speaking up feels risky. Setting boundaries feels selfish. Receiving attention feels awkward. This discomfort is normal, because growth often feels unfamiliar. The discomfort is not evidence that you are doing something wrong. It is often evidence that you are expanding. The difference between attention and recognition. Many people believe they want attention. What they actually want is recognition. Attention is being noticed. Recognition is being valued. Assertiveness helps create recognition because it allows people to see who you really are. Without authenticity, recognition becomes impossible. Because people can only recognize what you reveal. Becoming visible without becoming aggressive. Some people fear assertiveness because they think it requires confrontation. It does not. You do not need to dominate conversations, interrupt others, demand attention, or become forceful. True assertiveness is calm, clear, respectful, direct. It allows you to express yourself without attacking anyone else. That balance is powerful. The confidence that changes everything. The moment you stop hiding, something changes. You begin speaking more openly, sharing more honestly, expressing yourself more clearly. At first, some people may be surprised, others may resist. But over time, something remarkable happens. People begin seeing you differently. Not because you changed who you are, because you stopped concealing who you are. The end of invisibility. The goal is not to become the loudest person in the room. The goal is not constant attention. The goal is simply this: to allow yourself to be seen. To express your thoughts. To communicate your needs. To reveal your authentic self. Because genuine respect cannot develop in the absence of authenticity. People cannot respect a version of you they never get to know. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: nice people often feel invisible because they spend so much energy accommodating others that they stop expressing themselves. But respect grows when visibility grows. And visibility begins the moment you stop hiding your voice, your needs, and your truth. You do not need to become aggressive. You simply need to stop making yourself disappear. In the next chapter, we will explore the power of saying no without guilt, and why this single skill can transform your confidence, relationships, and self-respect. Chapter 7. The power of saying no without guilt. For many people, the smallest word in the English language is also the hardest to say. No. Just 2 letters, 1 syllable, a simple response. Yet for people pleasers, it can feel incredibly difficult, sometimes even terrifying. Because saying no is not just about refusing a request. It is about confronting fears. Fear of disappointment, fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as selfish. As a result, countless people spend years saying yes when they desperately want to say no. And every unnecessary yes comes at a cost. A cost paid in time, energy, peace of mind, and self-respect. Learning to say no without guilt is one of the most important skills a person can develop. Because it is not merely a communication skill. It is a self-respect skill. Why no feels so uncomfortable? Most people are not born afraid of saying no. The discomfort develops over time. Perhaps you were praised for being helpful, rewarded for being agreeable, encouraged to put others first. Gradually, you learned a lesson. Good people say yes. The problem is that this belief is incomplete. Good people sometimes say yes. Healthy people sometimes say no. And understanding the difference changes everything. The hidden cost of every yes. When someone asks for your time, attention, or energy, you face a choice. You can say yes. Or you can say no. But every yes has a hidden cost. Time spent on one thing cannot be spent elsewhere. Energy given to one person cannot be given elsewhere. Attention focused on one priority leaves less for another. People pleasers often ignore these costs. They focus only on the immediate discomfort of saying no, not the long-term consequences of saying yes. Why guilt appears. One reason people avoid saying no is guilt. Guilt is uncomfortable. It creates tension, self-doubt, anxiety. The moment someone declines a request, thoughts appear. Am I being selfish? Should I have helped? Will they be upset? These thoughts create emotional pressure. And many people respond by changing their answer. Not because they want to. Because they want relief from guilt. Guilt is not always a warning sign. Many people assume guilt means they are doing something wrong. This is not always true. Sometimes guilt is simply evidence that you are breaking an old pattern. Imagine someone who spent years saying yes to everything. The first time they set a boundary, discomfort appears. The guilt feels intense. But the discomfort is not proof the boundary is wrong. It may simply be proof that the behavior is unfamiliar. Growth often feels uncomfortable. Especially at first. The difference between selfishness and self-respect. People pleasers frequently confuse self-respect with selfishness. The distinction is important. Selfishness says, only my needs matter. Self-respect says, my needs matter too. Healthy boundaries recognize that everyone has needs, including you. Protecting your time, protecting your energy, protecting your mental health. These actions are not selfish. They are responsible. Why some people react negatively. One of the biggest surprises people encounter when they start saying no is resistance. Not everyone responds positively. Some people become frustrated, disappointed, annoyed. Why? Because the relationship dynamic is changing. People who benefited from unlimited access may struggle when limits appear. This does not mean the boundary is wrong. It simply means the expectations are changing. And change often creates discomfort. The myth that you must explain everything. Many people feel obligated to provide lengthy explanations whenever they decline a request. They believe, if I explain enough, they will understand. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. The important lesson is this: you do not need a courtroom defense for every decision. A respectful no is enough. For example, "I can't commit to that right now. That doesn't work for me. I'm unavailable." Simple. Clear. Respectful. The more confident you become, the less you feel compelled to justify every choice. Why boundaries strengthen relationships? Many people fear boundaries will damage relationships. Healthy boundaries often do the opposite. They create honesty, clarity, realistic expectations. Without boundaries, resentment builds. And resentment quietly poisons relationships. When people communicate limits openly, relationships become more sustainable. Because neither person is sacrificing themselves completely. The freedom of honest decisions. There is something powerful about making decisions based on truth rather than fear. Instead of asking, "How can I avoid upsetting them?" you begin asking, "What is the honest answer?" Sometimes the honest answer is yes. Sometimes it is no. The goal is not refusing everything. The goal is responding authentically. Why people respect clear boundaries? Clear boundaries communicate confidence. They demonstrate self-awareness. They show that you understand your limits. Most people respect clarity, even when they are disappointed by it. Unclear communication creates confusion. Clear communication creates trust, and trust contributes to respect. The practice of small no's. Many people imagine boundaries as major confrontations. In reality, confidence grows through small decisions. Declining an unnecessary invitation. Refusing an unreasonable request. Protecting personal time. Expressing a preference. These small moments build a foundation. Each no becomes evidence that you can survive discomfort. And confidence grows through evidence. The emotional freedom of refusal. One of the greatest benefits of learning to say no is emotional freedom. You stop feeling responsible for everything. You stop carrying burdens that do not belong to you. You stop trying to solve every problem. You stop managing everyone's expectations. The result is relief. Not because you care less. Because you are finally caring for yourself as well. Why not everyone needs to understand a difficult but important lesson is this: not everyone will understand your boundaries. Some people will disagree. Some people will criticize. Some people will misunderstand your intentions. That is okay. Your responsibility is not universal understanding. Your responsibility is honest communication. Trying to convince everyone often leads back to people-pleasing. Respecting yourself through action. Self-respect is not built through thoughts alone. It is built through action. Every time you honor a boundary, you send yourself a message: my needs matter. Every time you decline something that violates your priorities, you reinforce that message. Over time, these actions strengthen confidence. Because confidence grows when behavior aligns with values. The strength behind the word no. Many people see no as a rejection. In reality, it is often a declaration. A declaration that your time has value. Your energy has value. Your goals have value. Your well-being has value. The word itself is small, but the principle behind it is powerful. The life-changing realization. Eventually, people who practice boundaries discover a surprising truth: most of the disasters they imagine never happen. The friendships survive. The relationships survive. The world keeps turning. And even when someone is disappointed, they survive too. This realization weakens fear. And when fear weakens, confidence grows. The respect hidden inside no. People often assume respect comes from always being available, always helping, always accommodating. But lasting respect is usually built on something deeper: consistency, integrity, self-respect, boundaries. The ability to say no when necessary is a reflection of all four. That is why confident people are not afraid of the word. They understand its purpose. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon a piece of yourself. Every time you say no when it is necessary, you strengthen yourself. The goal is not to become difficult. The goal is not to become selfish. The goal is to become honest. And honesty requires the courage to say no when no is the truthful answer. That courage is one of the foundations of self-respect. In the next chapter, we will explore why over-explaining weakens your authority, and how learning to stop explaining yourself can dramatically increase confidence, clarity, and respect. Chapter 8. Stop explaining yourself. Many people have a habit they barely notice. A habit that quietly weakens their confidence, reduces their authority, and keeps them trapped in the cycle of seeking approval. The habit is over-explaining. It appears in everyday situations. Someone declines an invitation and then spends 5 minutes explaining why. Someone sets a boundary and immediately begins defending it. Someone makes a decision and feels compelled to justify every detail. Someone says no and then apologizes repeatedly. On the surface, this behavior seems harmless, polite, even. But beneath the surface, something deeper is happening. Over-explaining is often a sign that a person does not fully trust their right to make decisions. And when you do not trust your own decisions, you naturally seek permission from others. The hidden message behind over-explaining. Whenever you excessively justify yourself, you may unintentionally communicate a hidden message. I need your approval before I can feel comfortable with my choice. Most people do not realize they are sending this signal. They believe they are simply being considerate. But psychologically, over-explaining often comes from insecurity rather than courtesy. It is an attempt to avoid judgment, avoid conflict, avoid disappointment, avoid criticism. The goal is not communication. The goal is protection. Why people feel the need to explain. At the heart of over-explaining is fear. Fear that others will misunderstand. Fear that others will disapprove. Fear that others will become upset. Fear that others will think negatively about us. These fears create anxiety. And anxiety creates a desire to defend ourselves before anyone attacks. The result is excessive explanation, long justifications, detailed stories, endless reasoning, all designed to prevent discomfort. The approval-seeking mindset imagines someone saying, "I can't attend the event." A simple statement. Clear. Respectful. Now imagine the same person saying, "I can't attend because I've had a really stressful week, and I need to rest, and I also promised my family I'd spend time with them, and I've been exhausted lately, and..." The second response is not necessarily wrong. But often it reflects a deeper need. The need to convince others that the decision is acceptable. That need comes from approval-seeking. And approval-seeking weakens confidence. Why confident people explain less? One of the characteristics of emotionally healthy people is that they trust their decisions. Not because they are always right. Because they understand they have the right to choose. As a result, they communicate differently. They do not feel compelled to defend every choice. They do not seek permission to have boundaries. They do not require universal agreement. They simply communicate clearly and move forward. This creates an impression of confidence. Because confidence is closely linked to certainty. The difference between communication and justification. There is an important distinction between explaining and justifying. Communication shares information. Justification seeks validation. For example, "I won't be available this weekend." This is communication. Now consider, "I won't be available this weekend because I have so much going on, and I'm exhausted, and I know this probably sounds selfish." Now the focus has shifted. The speaker is no longer sharing information. They are defending their right to make a decision. The difference is subtle, but powerful. Why over-explaining invites debate? One unexpected consequence of over-explaining is that it often invites negotiation. The more reasons you provide, the more opportunities others have to challenge them. Imagine saying, I can't help because I'm tired. Someone may respond, you'll feel better after you get out. If you say, I have too much work, they may respond, it won't take long. Every explanation creates a potential opening. A simple boundary is often harder to argue with. The need to be understood. Many people over-explain because they desperately want to be understood. This desire is natural. Everyone wants understanding. But there is a dangerous belief hidden inside it. Everyone must understand me before I can move forward. That belief creates dependence. Because complete understanding is not always possible, some people will misunderstand you. Some people will disagree. Some people will create stories about your choices. And life must continue anyway. Why boundaries need less explanation than you think. A healthy boundary does not require a detailed defense. Consider these statements. That doesn't work for me. I'm unavailable. I won't be able to do that. Each statement is clear, respectful, direct. The more confidence you develop, the more comfortable these responses become. Not because you stop caring about others. Because you stop believing you need permission to have limits. The fear of being judged. At its core, over-explaining is often an attempt to control other people's opinions. You want them to understand, approve, agree, support, validate. But there is a problem. You cannot control what other people think. No explanation, no matter how detailed, can guarantee approval. The desire to control perception is exhausting. And ultimately impossible. Why silence can be powerful. Many people feel uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it. To explain, clarify, defend, justify. But silence has power. A clear statement followed by silence often communicates confidence. It suggests, I am comfortable with my decision. There is strength in that comfort. Because certainty rarely needs excessive explanation. Letting people have their opinions. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is allowing others to think whatever they want. This does not mean becoming indifferent. It means recognizing reality. People will form opinions regardless of what you say. Some will agree with you. Some will not. Some will misunderstand you. Trying to manage every opinion is impossible. Freedom begins when you stop trying. Why self-trust matters. Over-explaining often reveals a lack of self-trust. Deep down, the person is unsure. So they seek reassurance from others. But confidence grows through self-trust. And self-trust grows through action. Every time you make a decision and stand by it, you strengthen trust in yourself. Every time you refuse to justify a reasonable boundary, you strengthen confidence. The process is gradual, but powerful. The difference between confidence and arrogance. Some people worry that explaining less will make them seem rude or arrogant. Not necessarily. Arrogance dismisses other people. Confidence respects other people while still honoring itself. A confident person can be polite without becoming defensive. Respectful without becoming submissive. Clear without becoming aggressive. That balance is what creates authority. The freedom of simplicity. There is tremendous freedom in simple communication. You stop crafting elaborate excuses. Stop rehearsing explanations. Stop searching for perfect justifications. Instead, you speak honestly, clearly, directly. The emotional energy you save is enormous. Because you are no longer trying to earn permission for your choices. Reclaiming personal authority. Personal authority begins the moment you recognize a simple truth. You are allowed to make decisions without universal approval. You are allowed to set boundaries. Change your mind. Protect your time. Prioritize your well-being. Decline requests. Choose differently. None of these actions require a detailed defense. They require clarity. And clarity creates confidence. The quiet confidence of self-respect. The most respected people are not always the loudest. Not always the most persuasive. Not always the most charismatic. Often they are simply comfortable with themselves, comfortable with their decisions, comfortable with their boundaries, comfortable with the possibility that someone may disagree. That comfort creates a quiet confidence. And quiet confidence is difficult to ignore. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: the more you explain yourself, the more you communicate uncertainty. The more you trust yourself, the less explanation you need. You do not have to justify every boundary. You do not have to defend every decision. You do not have to earn the right to prioritize your well-being. Sometimes a clear answer is enough. And learning that truth is one of the most powerful steps toward genuine self-respect. In the next chapter, we will explore the crucial difference between kindness and weakness, and why truly kind people are often far stronger than most people realize. Chapter 9. Kindness is not weakness. Few misunderstandings cause more damage than the belief that kindness and weakness are the same thing. Many people grow up believing that being kind means always being agreeable, always accommodating, always forgiving, always available, always saying yes. As a result, they spend years confusing kindness with self-sacrifice. They become afraid of boundaries, afraid of conflict, afraid of disappointing others, because they worry that protecting themselves somehow makes them less kind. But kindness and weakness are not the same thing. In fact, genuine kindness often requires tremendous strength. The strongest people are frequently the kindest. Not because they are incapable of being firm. Because they choose kindness despite having the ability to be otherwise. That choice is power. The great confusion many people assume: a kind person never says no. A kind person never disagrees. A kind person never upsets anyone. A kind person always puts others first. These beliefs sound noble. But they are not accurate. They describe people-pleasing, not kindness. Kindness comes from generosity. People-pleasing comes from fear. And fear is never a foundation for true strength. What weakness really looks like: weakness is not being gentle. Weakness is not being compassionate. Weakness is not being caring. Weakness is the inability to act according to your values because of fear. For example, a person who wants to say no but feels unable to is not being kind. They are acting from fear. A person who tolerates mistreatment because they fear rejection is not demonstrating compassion. They are demonstrating self-abandonment. Weakness occurs when fear controls behavior. Strength occurs when values control behavior. The strongest people can say no. One of the clearest signs of inner strength is the ability to say no when necessary. Weak people often avoid saying no because they fear consequences. Strong people understand that boundaries are part of healthy living. They know that every yes carries a cost. And they are willing to disappoint others when honesty requires it. Not because they enjoy conflict. Because they value integrity more than approval. Why kindness requires courage. Real kindness is not always comfortable. Sometimes kindness means telling someone the truth. Sometimes kindness means holding someone accountable. Sometimes kindness means refusing to enable destructive behavior. Sometimes kindness means setting a boundary. These actions can create discomfort. Yet they are often far more loving than endless accommodation. Because kindness is about helping, not merely pleasing. The difference between being nice and being good: a nice person wants everyone to feel comfortable. A good person wants what is right. Sometimes those goals align, sometimes they do not. Imagine a friend making self-destructive choices. A nice person might stay silent to avoid upsetting them. A good person might speak honestly. The conversation may be uncomfortable. But discomfort is not always harmful. Sometimes it is necessary. The willingness to risk temporary discomfort for long-term growth is a sign of strength. Why weakness attracts disrespect. People instinctively respect strength. Not domination. Not aggression. Strength. Strength communicates stability, reliability, confidence. Weakness, on the other hand, often creates uncertainty. When someone constantly changes their position to satisfy others, people struggle to trust them. When someone never expresses their true feelings, people struggle to understand them. When someone avoids every difficult conversation, problems remain unresolved. This is why weakness often reduces respect. Not because people are cruel. Because consistency inspires confidence. The power of emotional strength. Many people think strength is physical, or financial, or social. But emotional strength is often more important. Emotional strength means handling criticism without collapsing, tolerating disagreement, accepting rejection, maintaining boundaries, remaining calm under pressure. These abilities create resilience. And resilience creates confidence. A kind person with emotional strength is incredibly powerful. Because their kindness comes from choice, not necessity. Why aggression is not strength. Some people move from people-pleasing to aggression. They become tired of being used, tired of being overlooked, tired of being disrespected, so they swing to the opposite extreme. They become harsh, defensive, confrontational. But aggression is not strength. Aggression often hides insecurity. True strength remains calm. It does not need to dominate. It does not need to intimidate. It simply stands firm. Compassion without self-abandonment. One of the most important skills in life is learning to care about others without abandoning yourself. Many people think they must choose. Either care for others, or care for themselves. Healthy people understand that both are possible. You can be compassionate and have boundaries. Generous and selective. Helpful and self-respecting. Loving and firm. These qualities are not opposites. They complement one another. The respect earned through strength. People often assume respect comes from being intimidating. In reality, lasting respect usually comes from consistency. People respect those who keep their word, honor their values, communicate honestly, maintain healthy boundaries, remain calm under pressure. These behaviors reflect inner strength. And inner strength is difficult to fake, because it appears in actions, not words. Why kind people sometimes need tough conversations. Many people avoid difficult conversations because they want to preserve harmony. But avoiding necessary conversations often creates larger problems. Healthy relationships require honesty. And honesty sometimes creates discomfort. A kind person understands this. They are willing to have the conversation. Willing to address the issue. Willing to speak the truth respectfully. Not because they want conflict. Because they value the relationship enough to protect it. Strength without cruelty. Some people believe strength requires hardness. That becoming stronger means becoming colder. Less emotional. Less caring. This is another misconception. The strongest people are often deeply compassionate. They simply refuse to let compassion become self-destruction. They understand that kindness without boundaries becomes weakness. But strength without kindness becomes cruelty. The goal is balance. The confidence that comes from integrity. Confidence does not come from controlling others. It comes from controlling yourself. Living according to your values. Keeping promises to yourself. Acting honestly. Protecting your boundaries. When behavior aligns with values, integrity develops. And integrity creates confidence. Because you trust yourself, that trust becomes visible to others. The new definition of strength. Many people spend years pursuing the wrong kind of strength. Trying to appear powerful. Trying to appear dominant. Trying to appear important. Real strength is quieter. Real strength is saying no without guilt, speaking honestly without aggression, remaining calm under criticism, helping others without losing yourself, standing firm without becoming hostile. This kind of strength earns genuine respect. Because it is rooted in character. Becoming strong and kind. You do not need to choose between kindness and strength. The healthiest people possess both. Their kindness makes them compassionate. Their strength protects their boundaries. Their empathy helps them connect. Their confidence helps them lead. Together, these qualities create balance. And balance creates respect. Perhaps the most important truth of all is this: weakness is not kindness. And strength is not cruelty. True kindness comes from strength. Because only a strong person can choose compassion without being controlled by fear. Only a strong person can help without being exploited. Only a strong person can care deeply while still protecting themselves. That is the kind of strength that earns lasting respect. And it is available to anyone willing to develop it. In the next chapter, we will bring everything together and explore how to become respected without becoming hard, selfish, or emotionally distant, the final step in transforming kindness into strength. Chapter 10. Becoming respected without losing your kindness. Throughout this book, we have explored a difficult truth: being too nice can sometimes lead to disrespect. Not because kindness is a weakness, but because kindness without boundaries often becomes self-sacrifice. Many people spend years trapped in this pattern, trying to earn respect by giving more, helping more, agreeing more, explaining more, accommodating more. Yet the respect they seek never fully arrives. Because respect is not earned through endless self-denial. It is earned through self-respect. And self-respect changes everything. This final chapter is about bringing all these lessons together. Not to become harder. Not to become colder. Not to become selfish, but to become stronger. The person you were never meant to be. Many people spend their lives performing a role. The role of the good person. The person who never complains, never disagrees, never disappoints anyone, never creates conflict. At first, this role feels safe. It earns approval, avoids criticism, reduces tension. But eventually it becomes exhausting. Because maintaining the role requires constant self-suppression. The real you gets pushed further and further into the background. And the more you hide yourself, the more disconnected you become. Not only from others, but from yourself. The cost of living for approval. Approval is seductive. It feels good. It creates a sense of belonging. It provides temporary comfort. But living for approval comes with a price. You begin measuring your worth through other people's reactions. Your confidence depends on external validation. Your decisions depend on other people's opinions. Your happiness becomes fragile. Because anything controlled by others can disappear. This is why approval can never replace self-respect. One is temporary. The other is lasting. The new foundation. If approval is not the answer, what is? The answer is building your life on a different foundation. A foundation made of self-respect, honesty, boundaries, authenticity, emotional strength. These qualities create stability. Unlike approval, they do not depend on external circumstances. They belong to you. And because they belong to you, they cannot easily be taken away. Respect begins internally. One of the most important lessons in psychology is that people often mirror the standards you set for yourself. If you constantly tolerate disrespect, others notice. If you consistently abandon your needs, others notice. If you never defend your boundaries, others notice. Likewise, if you value your time, others notice. If you communicate clearly, others notice. If you respect yourself, others notice. The world often responds to the signals you send. And those signals begin internally. The power of authenticity. Authenticity is one of the rarest qualities in modern life. Many people are performing, trying to fit expectations, trying to gain approval, trying to avoid rejection. Authentic people are different. They are willing to be seen, willing to express their opinions, willing to reveal their values, willing to risk disagreement. That willingness creates trust, because authenticity feels real, and people trust what feels real. Letting go of universal approval. Perhaps one of the most liberating realizations in life is this: not everyone needs to like you. This truth is uncomfortable, but it is also freeing. The moment you stop trying to win everyone over, you recover enormous amounts of energy. Energy previously spent Explaining yourself, defending yourself, pleasing everyone, avoiding criticism, managing perceptions. That energy can now be invested elsewhere. In your growth, your goals, your relationships, your well-being. Choosing respect over approval. There will be moments when you must choose approval or honesty, comfort or growth, pleasing others or respecting yourself. These moments define your future. Because every decision reinforces a habit. Every time you choose honesty over approval, confidence grows. Every time you choose self-respect over fear, strength grows. Every time you choose authenticity over performance, freedom grows. The changes may feel small, but over time they transform your identity. The courage to be misunderstood. One of the final stages of emotional maturity is accepting that some people will misunderstand you. No explanation can prevent it. No amount of effort can eliminate it. People see the world through their own experiences, their own beliefs, their own expectations. Sometimes they will judge you unfairly. Sometimes they will disagree with your decisions. Sometimes they will create stories about your intentions. You cannot control this. And trying to control it only creates suffering. The mature response is simple. Live honestly anyway. Kindness with boundaries. The healthiest version of kindness includes boundaries. It says, I care about you, and I care about myself too. It offers support without self-sacrifice, compassion without self-neglect, generosity without exploitation. This balance protects both people. Because relationships thrive when both individuals are respected, not when one person continually disappears for the sake of the other. Becoming someone others respect. People often ask, how do I make people respect me? The answer is surprisingly simple. Not easy, but simple. Respect yourself first. Honor your values. Protect your boundaries. Speak honestly. Keep your word. Act consistently. Trust yourself. The more you embody these qualities, the more respect tends to follow. Not because you demand it, because your behavior naturally inspires it. The life you gain. When you stop being controlled by people-pleasing, something remarkable happens. You gain time, energy, clarity, confidence, peace. You stop carrying responsibilities that do not belong to you. You stop trying to manage everyone's emotions. You stop apologizing for your existence. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. And in that freedom, your true personality begins to emerge. What real confidence looks like. Real confidence is not loud. It does not need constant attention. It does not seek validation from everyone. Real confidence is quiet, steady, grounded. It says, I know who I am. I know what I value. I know what I will and will not accept. This confidence is not built through achievement alone. It is built through self-respect. The final transformation. At the beginning of this journey, you may have believed that being nice was the key to earning respect. Now you know something deeper. Respect does not come from endless accommodation. It comes from balance. The balance between kindness and strength, compassion and boundaries, generosity and self-respect, honesty and empathy. When these qualities work together, something powerful emerges. A person who is both kind and respected, caring and confident, warm and strong. A final message. If there is one lesson to remember from this book, let it be this: you do not need to become less kind. You need to become less afraid of conflict, less afraid of rejection, less afraid of disappointing people, less afraid of being misunderstood. Because fear is what turns kindness into weakness, and courage is what turns kindness into strength. The goal was never to stop caring about others. The goal was to start caring about yourself with the same compassion you so freely give to everyone else. When you learn to do that, everything changes. Your relationships change. Your confidence changes. Your standards change. And most importantly, the way people treat you changes. Because the moment you truly respect yourself, you stop teaching the world that your needs come last. And that is where lasting respect begins.